This is how we do it. Chapter 19.
Woo, woo.
We made it. All right, guys.
We made it.
Final witness.
Tom Robinson. Okay, so Tom Robinson is called to the stand, and Atticus begins by telling all the facts about Tom, making sure that the jury understand that Tom has nothing to hide.
Exactly.
If anyone's ever seen the movie 8 Mile, you know how Eminem comes out and he gives his rap battle and he tells everything. He's like, yeah, I live in a trailer park. Yeah, my friend shot himself with a gun. He tells everything that they could use against him so that nobody can use it against them.
Exactly, and that's exactly what Atticus does. So we find out that he's 25 years old, he's married, he's got 3 kids. He did get into trouble with the law once before, and it was only because he got in another fight with a man who was trying to cut him. They were both convicted, but Tom Robinson didn't have the money to pay himself out of it. The other man did. So then they get into talking about the relationship with Mayella Ewell. Like, how does he know her?
He's like, hey, are you acquainted with her? And he says, yes, I had to walk past the Ewell house every time that I went to work for Link D's at his cotton gin working.
Field, yeah.
The field.
That's what it is, okay. So we find out that obviously Link D's is someone that he works for.
Atticus. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. He asked Tom if he was picking cotton in November, and he's like, no, but Link D's gives him work the whole entire year, which says something about, Tom Robinson's character right there as an employee.
And then Tom really points out the fact that there's no other way to get to Link D's place, that he has to go past the Yale house, and it's not like he was purposely going by there to cause any trouble for Mayella.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So, he explains that every single time he saw Mayella, he would be respectful. He would tip his hat over to her. She would say hello. And that was it until, she asked him to bust up the Schiffer robe. And that happened last spring because it was chopping time.
So he says that Mayella did offer him a nickel, but he didn't accept the cash. He said that he didn't want it. He would do it free of charge. And it's interesting because he was just trying to be a good man and trying to do good things.
Yes.
Unfortunately, when we think about life and the way that people are, the people who are always good don't always get
treated properly.
Treated the
exactly.
right way.
And in addition, you have to think about things back then. Like, why would a black person be doing something out of the goodness of their heart to help a white person? Not normal because of the treatment that they already got.
So then Atticus goes, well, Tom, have you ever helped out Mayella before? And he goes, yeah, plenty of times. She always asked me to do little things for her as if I was walking by the house.
And so the question is obviously, like, why would you do that? And he mentions that he knew that Mr. Ewell didn't really do anything good for them as a father, so he felt like he wanted to help if he could.
And he talks about the fact that the kids would watch him work from the window, and Mayella would talk to him a little bit. So it really gives us a vision of how things kind of worked before this was all set up.
Exactly. So there was a friendly kind of a
as friendly as it could get for people of different races.
Exactly. Okay. Scout is sorry. As Tom's giving that testimony, Scout makes a connection with Mayella Ewell, and she realizes, remember, she doesn't have any friends her age. She's here reaching out to the one and only black man that keeps walking by her house because a lot of people don't visit. So she realizes that Mayella Ewell must be like the loneliest person in the world, even lonelier than Boo Radley.
And then Jim even says, because they were talking about the mixed kids, if you think back to, who has mixed kids again?
That's that guy, what's his name?
Dolphus Raymond. Okay, he has mixed kids. He says she's even lonelier than mixed kids. You remember how they said if they're black and white, they don't know where they fit in. Do they fit in with the black people with the white fit? They don't fit in anywhere.
So this is on page 256 when he gives that simile, figurative language.
Online test folder.
She was as lonely as a mixed child. Pretty sad to think about that, that's what she's dealing with. But anyway.
So Atticus then asked Tom, well, did you ever step foot on their property without being asked? And he says, no, sir, I would never do that. That would never happen.
Exactly. So then they go on to recall the events that happened that day. So he said he was going home.
The Ewell place was quiet.
Which is weird again because remember there's usually a lot of kids that are there. They're not in school, so why would it be quiet?
So then Mayella asked him, hey, could you come up and help me for a second?
She told him that she needed something to be done in the house, okay?
So then Tom says, hey, well, where are the siblings at? Where are they?
So she says that they were in town to get ice cream and that she saved nickels. And there's like 6 to 9 of those kids, so she saved nickels for all of them so that they could go get ice cream. And it took her a whole year.
A year to save those nickels. And first of all, if I'm saving 7 nickels for my siblings so they can go get ice cream, I'm saving one for myself so I can go get ice cream too. So that's just a little bit suspect.
Yeah, like why would she do that? Why would she, send her brothers and sisters off?
So anyway,
Tom, being the good guy that he is,
he's like, that's really nice, Mayla. You're such a good girl. How can I help you?
Exactly.
All right. So she says, I need you to come in and,
bust up another chifforobe. Okay. So she has him climb up on a chair. He's doing something. And all of a sudden, she grabs his legs. She hugs him. He jumps over. The chair kind of flips over because, he's up on top. And she kind of reaches over and she tries to kiss him. Like that.
And then she basically kisses him on the side of the face and says, what my papa does to me doesn't count. And that makes you kind of like tilt your head a little bit. And what does your papa do to you? That's a little bit confusing and concerning.
Yes, absolutely. Very concerning. Because remember, her father is a drunk. When you're drunk, you're not thinking clearly. You're not making good choices. So what's the deal with her father? So then she says, kiss me back. Beep. Okay.
And she says that she's never kissed a grown man before.
Might as well be you.
So then Tom asks her to just let him go past. He's not trying to touch her, not trying to, push her, not trying to do anything violent. And then all of a sudden,
Bob Ewell comes in. He's hollering. He's saying, I'm going to, whatever, you goddamn whore, I'm going to kill you. So then obviously at the sound of that, Tom Robinson runs off. He freaks out.
And you have to think about it. He says, you goddamn whore, I'll kill you. He's talking to Mayella. He's not even concerned about Tom. Mm-hmm. So that should bring about some questions as well.
Yeah, like why would he go after his daughter and not after Tom Robinson first? Again, and remember what she just said about her father and what he does to her.
So Tom swears on the book that he didn't do anything to hurt her, he didn't rape her, he didn't do anything, and he's still not being ugly to her. So he's not trying to make her look like a bad person. Exactly. He's just basically saying, I'm sorry that you guys are feeling this way or you think that this is what happened, but I'm telling you what really happened.
However, when you run, it shows that you're kind of guilty, so why would he run? He says that it wasn't a sign of guilt, but that, if you were a black man in his situation, you'd be running as well,
So then finally, Mr. Link Dees, he stands up to the courtroom and he says, this boy's worked for me for 8 years and he ain't ever been in a speck of trouble. Not a speck. So then, of course, the judge has to kind of quiet him down, sit him down, because you can't really speak out in a courtroom unless you're supposed to be spoken to.
Exactly. But that, again, it gives you a judge of character for Tom Robinson. Like Link Dees, a white man, just stood up and kind of vouched for Tom Robinson. So, unfortunately, Mr. Gilmore, the prosecutor, has to re-examine Tom Robinson.
So he talks about the conviction that he had, talking about it was for 30 days. And he throws in the fact, well, if you're really good at busting up shift robes, that means that you're mighty strong, right? Strong enough to choke the breath out of a woman and to beat her up.
Again, trying to stab at him. And he asks him, like, why would you do this? Like, why would you help her out and not accept any money? What was the purpose of it?
So he basically says it looked like she didn't have nobody to help her, like I says, right? So right there you have a black man who's saying that she wasn't being helped by her father, by her siblings who are all white. So who is he to try and say that he can do better than other people can with helping her?
And that's on the bottom of page 263. We move on to 64, and Mr. Gilmore keeps pushing that whole idea of like, well, why would you help her? Tom, unfortunately,
it was like his one slip up.
It really was. He says, I felt right sorry for her. She seemed to try more than the rest of them, more than the rest of the Ewells, obviously.
So Mr. Gilmore really he slaps it on real heavy. He's like, oh, so you felt sorry for her. You felt sorry for her.
You felt sorry for a white person?
Right? That's completely not acceptable for a black man to feel sorry for a white person. And he starts to really question Tom at this point. And don't forget, with everybody in the courtroom, they're all kind of looking at Tom differently since he said that.
Exactly. Remember those Jim Crow laws that we talked about, like, those interactions that were acceptable and not acceptable.
So then he goes even farther and he says, so then you're saying that she's lying?
And so, again, Tom thinking about all this, he's like, I'm not saying she's lying. I'm saying that she's mistaken in her mind, okay? That, he can't obviously stand there and say that a white woman would be lying, because then he would be saying that she's dishonest, and that goes against, what's allowed and what's not allowed. So Gilmore keeps pushing.
And he's like, all right, so you're saying that you weren't guilty and that you ran because you were scared. So then why did you run, Tom? And Tom's basically like, well, I'm just reminding you that I'm black. Like, there's no other reason other than that I ran.
Because if I didn't run, then I'd probably end up here. And then I ended up here anyway in court,
Right. So at this point, Dill actually starts to cry upstairs in the balcony where they're located, in the, black balcony. And
it's uncontrollable.
It's uncontrollable, and it's this sign, this loss of innocence, because it's being taken away from them, and they're seeing how ugly people can really be. How Mr. Gilmore's treating Tom, and how everybody else is really putting the blame on Tom.
Exactly. There's just none of that. And Scout tries to kind of soothe him and tell him, he's just doing his job, and he's like, yeah, but it's just making me sick. It's just the way that he's doing it. And at that point, Dill makes the realization that this is a whole race issue. It's not just the action or what supposedly happened. There's a race issue behind this.
And he points out the fact that Atticus didn't treat Mayella that way. Remember, Atticus was polite to her, calling her ma'am and, calling her miss. And now he's watching Tom be basically picked apart by Mr. Gilmore.
Exactly. So he says that this isn't right, the way that they're doing it, and it's just awful. And he remembers, or they remember, Miss Mowdy's words. He's the same in the courtroom as he is on the public streets.
And they're talking about Atticus. Atticus, no matter what, he's respectful to people. He's going to try to treat people the way that he wants to be treated, which is the golden rule.
Exactly. Very important. And so even Dolphus Raymond comes up at this point, and he says to them as we end the chapter, you aren't thin-hearted. It just makes you sick, doesn't it?
Right, so Dolphus Raymond is coming up to the kids and starting to talk to them about this real issue of feeling this racial oppression and what's kind of going on in the South during this time. And that brings us to an end.
Exactly. So hopefully you guys will watch all these videos, because you will be having a major assessment soon. So please, we don't do this for our health. We do it for you. All right? Bye.
All right, bye.
See you tomorrow.